Hello, I'm Lucy and welcome to my channel. Today I think we have an interesting video. We're going to be watching Killing Michael Jackson documentary. This documentary was released in 2019. It's produced and released by Zigzag, and it of course talks about Michael's death. The documentary features Orlando Martinez, Dan Myers, and Scott Smith, three detectives who were involved in the initial investigations of Michael's death. So that's why I think it will be very interesting to know, because I never watched it, and I think we can actually get some new information, especially from detectives who know what they're talking about. There are many theories and ideas about Michael's death. Some people saying like he was killed, some other people said like he overdosed. But in my personal opinion, I think he was it was a homicide. He was killed by his doctor. Today's shout out goes to Mike Jackson, who is the one who suggested that I do this video. So thank you so much. They said, "Hey Lucy, I have a request. Can you please share your thoughts on Killing Michael Jackson documentary? It's somewhere on YouTube." And here we go. I'm sharing my opinions. I'm watching it with you for the first time. If you want to be next video shout out, just comment something nice that can make other people happy and maybe suggest a new video ideas. So I'm kind of excited about this. We're going to be watching. It's a little long because as I can see here, it's 44 minutes. Of course, I'm not gonna be adding the whole thing in, but the main ideas that I have to comment on, and I think you all have to know. Sit back, get some popcorn, relax. I may get emotional during this. I may curse a little. I hope not, because I don't usually do that. But that is something that really gets on my nerves, like talking about Michael's death and all of this. It makes me sad and angry. And I'm so sorry about the lighting situation. It's so cloudy outside, so the lighting will be changing a lot during the video. How amazing would This Is It tour be? It would have been amazing. After being found not guilty, yes. Jackson finished rehearsing and returned home to the rented mansion in LA. His personal doctor, Conrad Murray, arrived 12 hours later.
Emergency. Yes, sir. I need an ambulance as soon as possible, sir. We have a gentleman here that needs help.
MJ was dead.
He's not breathing.
You're talking about Michael Jackson here. It was absolutely huge.
He's not breathing yet. He's not breathing, and we're trying to pump him, but he's not.
Okay. Okay. How old is he?
He's 50 years old, sir.
50. Okay. Did anybody witness what happened?
No, just the doctor, sir.
There was a man with our patient who identified himself as the doctor. And as such, I immediately asked him some information. What had happened, how long has this been going on? And he told me then that it had just happened. This was a patient to me that it seemed that he had not just passed away, that some time had gone by before we were notified.
Yeah.
One of the greatest regrets that all of us had was that we had not been called sooner.
Yes! He called many people before calling the ambulance. What for? Like, the first thing you can do is actually call the ambulance. So if there's a chance of him being alive, so he can actually, survive.
From the information that I had, it was probably an accident or natural.
There wasn't a bloody knife. There wasn't a smoking gun.
It could have all been prevented if they got like the ambulance on time. If Conrad Murray wasn't there.
When I arrived at the hospital, Dr. Murray was gone.
He escaped,
he was
basically.
no longer there at the scene.
We're in a bit of a panic then. The one person that was in a room with them at the time that everything happened is no longer at the hospital.
There were several attempts right away to get a hold of Dr. Murray. that were negative, that they were going to voicemail.
Yeah, family
Who would
members,
flee after
Jackson
such
family
thing
members
if
coming
they
in
weren't
and
feeling guilty?
people wanting some questions answered as well as us.
Of course. I'm getting so angry. If you don't know, Dr. Murray called the assistant, Michael's assistant, and called many people before even calling the ambulance. He did CPR on the bed. Who in his right mind does CPR on the bed? Everyone knows that you shouldn't do CPR on the bed, that you should like put him on the floor or something and do CPR. You should do something. He waited some time to actually call the ambulance, which he should have done first. And then flee. Like he just escapes and run. Like he should have stayed there and told the doctors and the ambulance like what happened. Like, you know, these can actually help. He should have told him like, oh, my patient took this, like he took Propofol and I gave him Propofol and he has this history. And you know, these are the stuff that should be told to doctors as soon as possible so they can know what they can do, even though like it was too late because he called them too late too. It's just, this whole thing like really angers me because it shouldn't have happened. It could have not happened this way. It could have all changed. Michael could have been still alive just because of this doctor, who, by the way, gave him Propofol, the amount that can kill an elephant. And I listened to a lot of recordings and videos during the trial, and I was so surprised that they said that. They said that he gave him the amount that can kill an elephant. And he knows that. Like, he's a doctor. He knows that it's too much Propofol for a person.
The emergency room physician, they believed it was a heart attack, partly because of what Mr. Murray had told them. Never told them anything about any other narcotics.
Because he was afraid that it's illegal.
He had had a heart attack.
To give him Propofol.
Stopped breathing. The room where Dr. Murray treated Mr. Jackson. And then there was a locked room, which was Mr. Jackson's bedroom. There's a fireplace in the room and it was roaring. So the room was very, very hot. There were like Post-it note or pieces of paper.
Wait. I am so grateful that I am a magnet for miracles. Love, these are affirmations. This is like affirmations, like kind of the law of attraction. He says positive things about himself, so he can actually believe it, so it actually happens. You know, love, no violence ever. And these are some numbers. That's interesting. That's really interesting.
All over the room, on mirrors, on doors, with little slogans.
I love not
I don't know
violence.
if they were lyrics or
Discipline with
thoughts
love,
or
no
some of them
violence
seemed
ever.
like poems.
How amazing
The
was he?
bedroom was
That makes me so sad.
it was a mess.
I hate you. I hate you.
In the room where he was being treated, it did not seem like a room fit for any type of medical treatment. There was a computer on the bed. There was a lifelike doll on the bed. And it's kind of like advertisements of pictures with babies. Everybody knew about the allegations that had been leveled against Mr. Jackson over the years. One of the things when I saw the laptop on the bed, do I go into it? But you have to realize the type of case I was investigating.
I have to comment on something about the child advertising and pictures you saw. We all know that Michael loved children, but we don't really know what are these for. I'm not gonna say like, oh, because he has advertisement for children, that means like he did something wrong, which was proven that he was not. And the FBI even are the people who investigated Michael for 10 years and found nothing. We're talking FBI. Like if there's something, they would know. So let's not go and try to make up ideas about Michael that we know there's no evidence on.
Your investigation is focused on how did he die,
Not about
And
the
who was
child
responsible for it?
allegations.
In the room where he was being treated,
It's about his death.
a bottle of Propofol had fallen on the ground and rolled under this moving nightstand. I didn't know what it did. That ended up being a huge deal later. I had no medical background whatsoever. My neighbor was a doctor. So I went to my neighbor and I asked him about it. And my neighbor was the one who got it started of, whoa, what is this doing here? This is only used in surgeries. This is used to put people under.
Anastasia. I find this so interesting and I really want to know what will happen, what they'll say. Maybe it's some new information that I didn't know about. But the thing is, when you actually see like the actual room that Michael was in and you start imagining how it happened, it just makes you feel some kind of emotions and triggers you. So that is why, even though I may not know any new information because I really researched this a lot of time, it will give me some kind of closure to what actually happened and put it in perspective as like it is actual reality. Because sometimes when I think about how it all happened, it's like a movie or a story in my head. It's not actual reality. It makes me realize again, even though like I know that it actually happened this way.
We had put it out in the press that we were looking for Dr. Murray.
If he's not guilty,
We still didn't think that there was anything
why didn't he
criminal
go to
going
the
on.
police and help?
The only thing that we knew was
Why
the
did he
surgery
run?
drug was at the location. It
He knew
shouldn't
he
have been.
did something wrong.
The next day, get a call. His attorney has been in contact. He consents to an interview. So our plan was to let him talk. And that's what we did.
Let's see.
So, how long have you been doctor for distress?
I first started attending to him in 2006.
And there's continuous 2006 on?
No, well, no,
Or on and off?
off and on, intermittent.
Okay.
We didn't know what happened. We didn't want to assume anything. And we wanted to give the doctor an opportunity to dig his own hole, if that was the case.
It was just
Yeah.
you and Michael.
Usually that's how it is.
Okay. And this night it was just you and Michael.
Just myself and him.
Like they wanted to make him confess kind of indirectly. Maybe like they'll see some holes in his story, or maybe he'll say something and then say something again that doesn't make sense with what he said earlier. So they're trying to make him admit his wrongdoings.
He proceeded to tell us that, Michael just couldn't sleep. He was just so amped up about this upcoming concert. He, by nature, had a hard time
Yeah.
sleeping.
We
You know
gave
that.
him some drugs.
Some Valium, lorazepam, and diazepam, and a few other to try and calm Michael, to try and get him to rest, to fall asleep.
Okay, if you don't know, if you're not a moonwalker, a fan of Michael Jackson, Michael couldn't really sleep. He had insomnia, he had a sleeping disorder condition. He couldn't sleep properly, and that I think started even before the 90s, maybe in the 80s. So he's always had this insomnia and he wanted help from a doctor, and that's what a doctor did to him. And I know that Dr. Murray said that he didn't agree with Michael taking Propofol because he knows that this is a serious drug, but Michael kept on pressuring him to give him the drug so he can sleep. But even if he kept on pressuring you, you can't say no. Even though he's Michael Jackson, you can't say no. You can say, okay, that doesn't work with my work ethics, so I'm not gonna do that. And if you don't agree, then I'm sorry, I'm not your doctor anymore. Couldn't he say that? Even if Michael was pressuring him. Michael is a patient. We don't even know, because this is what he said, that Michael said he wanted this, but At the same time, Michael is a patient. He's not a doctor. He doesn't know what will happen if he uses it. The only thing that he knows is that this will make him sleep. You know, this will make him less tired and sleep peacefully. This is what he knows because he's not the doctor. But we don't know if that's what actually happened, if Michael was the one who pressured him into giving him Propofol. Because this is what the doctor said. And we know that the doctor who is the one who killed him. So he'd of course lie and say like, oh, Michael wanted me to say it because Michael isn't here to defend himself. And at the same time, he knows that this is illegal. It's illegal to give someone who's not going into a serious operation in a hospital Propofol. Like, he knows this is illegal. And he did it anyway. Why? Because, oh, Michael pressured me? You're a fucking doctor. Shouldn't say that. Okay, let's continue.
Sleep, and nothing works.
He was wide awake. I said, do you feel a little bit drowsy? Do you think your eyes are telling you want to sleep? He said no.
Dr. Murray says, you know, after trying all these various things, nothing was working. And it's in the early morning hours of the next day. And so finally, I just gave Michael his milk.
And
His
that's when
milk?
he said, I'd like to have some milk.
Milk?
Hot, cold milk, what are we talking about? He says, oh, well, it's a medication. Does the medication have a name? He says, well, it's Propofol. And this was, again, a big revelation during this interview.
Milk.
That Propofol is
Cool.
mentioned.
And what is this Propofol?
It is a sedative that could also be used for
Anesthesia.
He freely admits
Yeah, he knows.
that for months he's been using this
He's admitting.
to help Mr. Jackson sleep.
Okay, you've administered it more than 10 times?
Yes.
More than 20 times?
30 days a month, roughly, every day.
Oh, so it's about the daily.
Daily.
In my
Daily.
head, I was thinking, what the heck? To drug someone to sleep, even with their permission,
Daily.
the way that he did. I didn't think it was legal.
For 30
I
years.
monitored. I sat there and watched for long enough period that I felt comfortable.
You
Gave
monitor
him
him.
Propofol.
Yeah, sure.
And then goes to the bathroom, comes back. Mr. Jackson's not breathing.
So I started immediately to perform
That's
CPR.
lying. No. He wasn't gone for a little bit and to the bathroom. If you hear in court what was said, he was on the phone for like around an hour or something. He was calling different people and talking to them on the phone, not monitoring Michael. Like he should have been above Michael's head, you know, making sure that he's all right and he's breathing correctly. I just went to the toilet and the bathroom and came back. No, that's not what happened. I mean, there are phone records in court that were shown.
and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
He goes into a panic. He tries CPR while Michael's on the bed. He summons Alberto Alvarez, the head of security, and ultimately Alberto Alvarez is the one that calls 911.
When we reviewed the CCTV at the mansion, we saw that he carried in a bag with him. And also the
bag.
family and the security staff told us he would always carry a bag with him. When he went to the hospital, he did not have the bag with him.
The biggest aha moment was when I had asked Dr. Murray where his bags were.
Where's your bag where those syringes would be at now?
Oh, really?
I don't have that.
Yeah,
He was relieved.
He was assuming that we had it.
You haven't got my bags? Once he realized we didn't have that, he's like, fuck. You know, deer in the
Oh.
headlights look, if you will.
You know, legally, we can search the areas that are relevant. It wasn't in the room that was relevant.
If you walk into the dressing room and you turn right, at the high level top, the bags right there with the items in it.
Different room, in a closet, in a cubby above the closet, and recovered the bag. We found a bunch of more medicines that he had used, like propofol and lidocaine.
That amount.
One of the other things that we found was we found all the waste, all the trash, the needles, the empty bottles, the stuff that when we went into the room should have been laying around.
Why were they there?
So we knew that sometime during this medical
He
emergency,
hit them.
Dr. Murray had stopped either giving CPR or had waited to give CPR and cleaned up everything.
He hit the bag.
So we're thinking, what could be the reasons for that? If your goal is to preserve the life of the person that you're giving
You wouldn't
CPR
think about
to,
hiding
why
evidence.
Would you pause that to pick up trash?
To hide evidence.
Unless you're trying to hide something.
Yeah, like you would be actually
If he wouldn't have
giving
told us where it was,
CPR
or if he would have taken it with it
and called the
we
ambulance.
would have lost that element of the hiding, the trying to cover up.
We were now looking at Murray. He was behind the death.
Which he deserves. Well, but he didn't get it.
And even though you have this overwhelming amount of evidence to secure a conviction, you don't get it.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
When I showed up to go into the autopsy, you know, they had a little cover over the window, and they're looking to make sure it's just me and no one else is around, and they open the door and they usher me in right away and close the door and lock it.
They wanted to be very
you know,
secretive.
We're in a controlled environment. This is your office. This is a coroner's office. So what's the problem? The thing that was odd that I found myself periodically looking at was, you know, his head, his scalp. Because whenever he's out in public, he's wearing a wig.
Because he had burned his head. And yeah, 1984. The Pepsi commercial, we all know that.
Looking at his scalp,
was a third
the top of his head being severely scarred, hardly any hair at all on the sides, to what he would look like in public with the flowing hair. That was, you know, a bit different. Not defending his use of prescription medicine by any means, but
it was a third-degree burn.
You know, when you experience
really
something
was
like that, it kind of opens up the door.
Very
for
hard, and he couldn't
painkillers
grow hair
whatever
back
else
in that
may
area.
lead to.
So
But
he
other
wore
than that,
wigs.
it truly just, let's do this and get it done.
He was relatively healthy. You know, this isn't a man who should have died.
That's what I'm saying.
An official cause of death.
It's official. Michael Jackson's death was a homicide.
Which is a good thing.
The LA County Coroner's Office says the cause of death was an acute intoxication from the anesthetic
That they
Propofol.
said that it's a
Once
homicide.
the toxicology report came back, it gave us a lot more power behind our investigation.
There was just no way that what he said was factual to what they found out. Had enough propofol in him to drop a rhinoceros.
He could no longer breathe on his own, and Murray had not set up an environment to allow for artificial means of breathing, which is reckless, gross negligence.
Recklessness, laziness, everything in that doctor. I don't know how Michael trusted him with his life.
This is a bottle that people pee into when they're bedridden. This was found at the bedside and it was full. He used the restroom without having to get out of bed. What it made us think was that he was completely incapacitated, that someone was caring for him to that extent. Seeing things like this, I realized that he wasn't being helped to fall asleep. He was being kept under. As a consequence, not having the strength or the ability to get up and go to the restroom, just take care of business and continue sleeping.
I I don't think you know the power that people have. Michael Jackson fan base were pushing for justice, were pushing for the truth, and that of course helped the people to actually be aware of the situation and see that this is not correct. We need the truth. We need this man, this doctor to be convicted. So the public opinion about this matter and about it being a homicide was really helpful to the trial.
Statement after statement after statement in Conrad Murray's interview, what he said made no sense. It was not possible. He just asserted things that were not true.
You would need a continuous drip of the propofol and not a shot, not an injection, like Dr. Murray had said he had used. It wears off really quickly.
So what I'm simulating right here is the dose that Conrad Murray claims was available to Michael Jackson and that the defense claimed resulted in Michael Jackson's death. A dose of just 25 milligrams, 2.5 cc's of drug, which is ridiculous. It only lasts for a few seconds, and this was the whole point of the mathematics that I presented.
Doesn't make sense.
And the heart, of course, keeps pumping. So we know that there was a 100 cc vial hanging over Michael Jackson. Knowing it was empty, we can see exactly how over a period of about 30 to 40 minutes, it enters into a dose that would be associated with a lethal concentration of drug in a patient who wasn't being looked after because they're really under pretty deep general anesthesia at that point in time. And this corresponds to having an empty 100 ml vial.
Which means he took the whole thing.
What we discovered was one of the IV bags had been emptied. One of the Propofol bottles had been upside down inside the bag.
There's a bottle of Propofol inside an IV bag? I mean, one of the single weirdest details.
There was a big tear, a pike or a needle that is large would have broken the top of the Propofol bottle so that it could drip freely down.
Basically, Murray was using the saline bag to hang the bottle of Propofol from the stand, but also, I think, to hide it, because he didn't want anybody to know he was using Propofol. So you get an idea of just how crazy this is. The anesthetic drugs are all dangerous. There is really no access outside of the healthcare setting. We have pumps that are set up, that are precisely calibrated, and we precisely control the dose. He had an IV line that's coming down from here, and it's got a little roller clamp on the side. You just adjust this little roller clamp. It's a gravity-fed system. There's very little control on the rate of the drug, and that's what he was using. It's insane. Nobody trained in propofol administration would not precisely control the infusion rate. Nobody trained in the use of propofol would ever walk away from a patient who is receiving propofol as a continuous infusion. Physicians with no training in anesthesia have no business giving propofol.
So at that point, we knew this was not an honest mistake, but that this was on purpose bad medicine.
An MD degree is not a license to do whatever the hell you want to do and just think you can get away with it.
Like, even doctors have to follow rules and instructions and be trained in something to be able to do that.
One of the challenges in the investigation was the uncooperative witnesses. One of those was Dr. Murray's girlfriend. When we finally served the search warrant at her apartment, the whole place had been cleaned out. There was nothing to show that Dr. Murray had been there.
And that shows that they're actually guilty.
Frequented there.
If there's nothing, if everything is clean,
fortunately,
why would they do that?
They had missed behind one of the bookcases. Behind one of the bookcases, we found a receipt for a pharmacy. That led us to the propofol. These items here are what we found at Nicole Alvarez's house. So it brings me back to remembering how difficult things were when dealing with her. This business card and this receipt were the only things in his name at her place. This led us to the pharmacy. The pharmacy had all the records ready. They had been following the news and they knew that the police would be there eventually. And as you go through, you can see all the amounts. One case of the 100 milliliter bottles, one case of the 20 milliliter bottles. In June, 4 cases of the 100 milliliter bottles. All of the amounts, it's over 5 gallons worth of Propofol.
A massive amount of Propofol, a massive amount of Propofol was shipped to his girlfriend's house.
That relationship was a perfect storm. Michael first got introduced to Propofol through a dental procedure, and he liked it. He felt like, wow, this is the best way to go to sleep.
That was his drug of choice. And he was looking for doctors that would administer that.
He is a patient, though.
You know,
he's not a doctor.
As wrong as it was.
He doesn't know the consequences. A doctor should know. A doctor should not agree. That's not entirely Michael's fault for wanting to sleep.
Successful and ethical, and distinguish why they would risk a patient's life.
For money.
For
money.
For anything. What would make it worth it?
We know that.
And then search warrants out in Las Vegas at his residence, as well as his place of business in Las Vegas, and then his office out in Houston, Texas.
We get into finances, we get into business dealings, and his relationships.
He had several children. We would learn several of them by several different wives.
He would go out to places of adult entertainment and spend outrageous amounts of money. He would put on a show and not be able to support it financially. He would leverage his closeness to a celebrity to manipulate young women into relationships.
Oh, well, I'm Michael's doctor.
We knew that he had purchased a home in October.
I'm the doctor who killed him now. Come talk to me.
For over $1 million, and his mortgage was $10,000.
How shallow is he?
And he had stopped paying it.
Like a doctor who does that in his personal life is not the doctor who you can trust with your life. Like he should be at least responsible.
We saw a pattern of sloppy behavior. This is what I recovered from his car, from the doctor's car. This was the contract as we first found it. The agreement between Dr. Murray, AEG, and Mr. Jackson. The producer shall remit payment to Dr. Murray in the amount of $150,000 per month. So this is where the money came into it.
Michael started working, preparing for this huge comeback tour, and that's when he had reached out, Michael, and told AEG that he wanted Conrad Murray with him. And initially AEG's like, you know, London's not a third world country. They have fabulous doctors over there. What do you need your own physician for?
And Michael's response to his managers were, listen, the President of the United States has a physician, travel with him. I want a physician to travel with me.
Dr. Murray agreed to go ahead and accompany him and provide Michael with what he wanted.
So he needed this gig with Mr. Jackson either to pay off or to keep up with his debts.
He had the right motive. He needed money.
Ultimately, the decision was made to charge Dr. Murray with involuntary manslaughter as opposed to second-degree murder.
Possible life term. Okay. Sentence for involuntary manslaughter is 4 years, which he, I think, got.
The DA's
just 4
office
years for killing Michael.
High-profile failure. It was an election
just
year
4 years
for the district attorney. I think it was I don't want to say the lazy way out, but again, a manslaughter charge was, you know, the path of least resistance.
The family wasn't happy with it at all.
Of course. They killed their brother, their son.
Mrs. Jackson.
And it's obvious that he did it.
Beside herself, that there wasn't going to be a second-degree murder filed.
Like compared to life in prison.
We felt the
and
evidence
4 years,
suggests
there's a
that
big
it was
difference.
a second degree.
The level of his negligence was just so clear that we thought that it would apply. We do not charge people. We investigate the case and we present it.
His attorneys didn't want Dr. Murray to be seen in handcuffs in public, because that's not good for his image.
From what is left
Neither
from
is
his
killing
image.
somebody.
The good thing he's not a licensed
Behind
doctor
our backs,
anymore.
the
He
DA's office
can't
made that agreement
be a doctor
with
anymore, which is great.
Dr. Murray's attorneys.
Oh, it's bad for my
Doctor turned
image.
himself in, voluntary
Not that
surrender.
I was charged with murder, no. More than 2 years after Michael Jackson's death, Conrad Murray stood trial.
I am an innocent man. I therefore plead not guilty.
Oh, I'm not guilty.
Again, he feels he done nothing wrong. It wasn't his fault. He's arrogant individual.
Yeah, because of... If not because of him, Michael would have been alive. Revealed in Michael Jackson's final hours.
Conrad Murray figuratively and literally abandoned
This is what I was saying.
We looked at Murray's
This is
phone
what I was
records.
saying.
That was a big,
I watched a
huge
lot of the trial
piece. We
video.
could see Murray on his phone at certain times.
He left this vulnerable man filled with Valium and midazolam and lorazepam and Propofol with no medical monitoring equipment,
Right.
no necessary resuscitative equipment. He left him there, abandoned him to fend for
To
himself.
talk on the
So as far
phone.
as stepping away for a minute and going to the bathroom and coming back and, oh my gosh, Michael's dead. No.
See,
He was sending emails, reviewing a contract, and he was also on the telephone with various people. While he was on the phone, he realized that Mr.
while
Jackson
he
was
was
not breathing.
he should have been over Michael's
mumbling
head,
the voices.
making
It
sure he's
sounded like
okay.
the phone was maybe in his pocket or something. It was shh, and I heard coughing.
We looked at the timelines of when the 911 call was, I think, around 20 to 25 minutes after that call with Sade ending.
Mr. Murray started cleaning up the mess that he had left, covering up the medical treatment that he was giving, put that away, called for help from security, directed them to call 911 while he gave ineffective one-handed CPR.
So he made sure to hide the evidence against him and that what was he doing was wrong, then called for help, security for help, and then called the ambulance. He took all of his time and did CPR on the bed, and for what?
And then traveled to the hospital with Mr. Jackson. Dr. Murray fled the hospital before we
And he wanted to go
arrived.
to the
Waited
house.
a couple days to get his story straight, and ultimately was prosecuted for his crime.
Something that I heard in the trial, I think, is that he called the assistant and he said like he needs to go back to the crime scene because he wanted something, and he started saying like, oh, like I have to hide this because of Michael doesn't want that to be shown to the public after his death. But I think like he wanted to actually hide more evidence, the propofol and things, so that police don't get a hold of it.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Conrad Robert Murray, guilty of the crime of involuntary manslaughter.
He should have gotten second degree. He should have. But at least he's guilty. He's out now. No one wants your kisses.
That's how that turned out.
Was sentenced 4 years in prison. Just 4 years for what he've
Should have
done.
been a second-degree murder. Yeah, I think it could have been.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is not a choice that we were able to make.
The
His
biggest
medical
thing
licenses
is that
were
he does not get
suspended.
his medical
great.
license back in any state. And I personally don't see that happening.
Yeah, he killed someone.
I'm just trying to keep
because
it
of
light
his
and polite
negligence.
here.
Why would anyone want to
he's in his
risk
own
their
world.
life?
He's in his own world, Dr. Murray.
A Dr. Murray world full of shit. Was released in 2013 after 2 years. Going to prison over, and good behavior. For good behavior, he got 2 years.
I think that this case, we actually have the answers. We won't be in that book of unsolved murders, all the big ones where we failed. At least my name won't be put a...
they did a good job, but we still have speculations around the whole thing. They were amazing, really. Now provides medical consultations without license and free of charge. Who would go to him? No, thank you. I don't want to kill anyone. Thank you. Whew. Okay, that was something. I know that they start saying at the end that they have no regrets, which I really think they did a good job. They at least showed that the doctor was guilty and showed all the evidence they had. They provided as much as they could to the police. If you watch true crime and you hear about many cases, there are a lot of negligence sometimes, especially from the police, which I don't think happened in Michael's case, which is good. That's because, you know, the public opinion, the fans who were trying as much as possible to convict Dr. Murray. He's not a doctor. Conrad Murray. You know, this is where public opinions come into place because it pressures the police and even the judges to, you know, look at the situation and look for the truth. I think I really enjoyed this documentary. I really enjoyed it, and hearing the story from the detectives themselves like gives you that other feeling, that other perspective about the whole situation. I spent some time watching the trial and learning about the information, like what happened before he died and the week that led into this, and you know what happened after it and during the session. There are more informations in those videos and they are actually found on YouTube. There are many if you can go and watch them and learn more about it. And it just, I really like knowing about cases and what happens in trial and stuff like that. Just something that is very interesting to me. I really hope that you got some information. Tell me in the comments down below your opinion, but please stay respectful. We can talk and express our opinions, but respectfully. And if you have any information that can help us learn more about it, tell me in the comments as well, because I really want to learn more. Anyway, if you like this video, please put thumbs up, subscribe for new videos, notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Tell me in the comments down below what other videos you'd like to see, and I hope you have a nice day and week, and goodbye.